Today we are getting ready to step back into the 17th century. And we are reopening the pages of my favorite fairy tale, The White Cat, published by Madame d'Aulnoy in 1698. This is the part 2 of this series of videos documenting the progress of my illustrations, scenes and decors for the book project I started in winter 2023, which has slept in a corner of my studio for 9 months till this year in January 2024. And for a few weeks, White Cat has even invaded my 2 desks. In this second video, you will see the progress I made. Working on this project is a work of patience, endurance, discipline, and commitment because I'm making progress on it while working on other things such as my workshops and a piece I'm creating for an exhibition coming soon. Working on this fairy tale when the daylight vanishes in silence with the ticking of the clock and the flickering light of a handful of candles makes the work even more magical. This is my sketch for the supper scene, one of the important scenes of the fairy tale when the prince is meeting White Cat for the first time. So here I have imagined a lot of things, totally following the text. I'm probably going to not to do probably everything. For the moment I'm focusing on the first ground, and I would like to have ideally all the gallery of paintings she's describing in the story in this beautiful room where there are all sorts of representation of cats, the witches turn into cats, there is the cat hung by the feet, well, all sorts of fun scenes. So I would like to do them, but we will see if I have the space to do everything, because it might be a little crowded, so we will see, because I want to have also the cages with all the mice. I was trying to do some research on fun cages to do, and of course the hands. There will be quite many hands too. I need to redo. I had done some for the cover. I only have 2 for now, and I will need to have more because they will all have something in their hands, so I need to have a few more, especially in this scene when they are bringing a lot of things on the table. For the White Cat and the prince to eat for their supper, so I will have to prepare a few more hands. So last year I made a list of all the scenes, big scenes, small scenes I wanted to illustrate in the fairy tale, and as I mentioned, it was really a trap because there are so many temptations in this fairy tale, in most of her fairy tales of course, but this one especially. You would like to illustrate everything. Everything is so nicely described, the description is so nice and give you so many ideas, but I will never be able to illustrate so many scenes I was putting aside so that I could work on them. I concluded that I had to choose 5 scenes, 5 big scenes for the first part with White Cat, when White Cat is an animal and when she is a princess before the metamorphosis, on the second part of the story when she tells her past. And I have to really decide which 5 scenes I want to do on these 2 parts, otherwise I will never be able to finish all this. It's just too much work, especially the way I want to do it, in a really nice way, and all the outfit of the prince and all the characters are going to be very sophisticated. I want to spend time time doing all the embroideries and all the furniture, and mixing also some drawing, as I have done, you have seen on the cover. There are things in volumes in paper with my classic paper techniques I use, and also things drawing and mixing everything. And I will be probably using more drawing as I make progress for all the scenes I will never have the time to illustrate, but it's a nice challenge too. Today we have a very atmospheric weather with a big tempest outside, and the wind, maybe you can hear it. We can hear it sometimes through the fireplace. My fireplace here is closed, but I can hear the wind sometimes, or if something is falling inside. But it's just the perfect weather to focus and work on the white cat, because there is a tempest too in the white cat before the supper scene, which I'm working on for the moment. I also had some questions regularly all this past month when my characters are going to be for sale. Are they going to be for sale? Is White Cat for sale? The main character, White Cat, that you have seen. I'm working on several of her bodies, and she's going to have the same head as I mentioned. But at the very end, I will probably do other heads for the other white cat bodies. But I wanted to have the same head for all my white cats. So the reply is, I mentioned that in my first video of White Cat. If you didn't watch it, you can watch it. I made it last May. It was the first part of this series. As I said, I plan to finish first everything, like absolutely everything, all the characters, the drawings, the accessories, the paintings, everything. And I would like ideally to have an exhibition with all these scenes before deciding to sell them, because I think it would be really nice once the book is ready, or that, find a place to have who would like to have the scene of the story would be really nice. So we will see what happens. I'm not selling them for the moment at all. I want to have finished everything, and it's going to take the time it takes. I'm a tortoise, and the way I want to do things, it's going to take time. It's not a work of rush or doing things fast at all. It's the opposite of that, and I'm totally happy about the journey. So once everything is done, I have completed my project, we will see. But it is not the other way around. I'm working on all this to serve a story and to serve a book and a fairy tale. Not I'm doing things that I want to sell and maybe I will use them for the fairy tale. It's not like that, and I'm going to do things which wouldn't be sellable anyway, that people would not be interested. I don't want to have these restrictions of I have to do things so that people will like it. The wind is really, really huge. I hope you don't hear the sound too much of the wind, but there is really a lot of wind. So I want to continue the project, and I'm going to keep you updated, of course, in the next videos of this series, which are going to come sooner this time, I promise. I'm really now back into the story in the project, and I'm really excited to make some progress and finish it. While the book is in the making, if you are interested, you can listen to the audiobook Mr. Lawrence Caldwell and I have prepared for you. You can find the link just under this video, and you will be directed to the place where you can download the book and add it to your collection of audiobooks or your fairy tales or stories. So the audiobook is pretty long, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes, as it's the case for most of Madame d'Aulnoy's fairy tales, and here we have chosen to find an unabridged translation of the fairy tales, which is not so easy to find. Most of her fairy tales, when they are published or recorded, are abridged, changed, simplified, and the style of the translator doesn't always give justice to her wonderful, amazing, creative writing style, because she invents words all the time, she plays with the sound of words too. She's very creative, and very often the translators, they don't know how to do that. They stay very plain and very basic in their translations. Here we have found one from the late 19th century, which is as close as possible from the original, without this little touch of creativity. But at least the translator didn't remove all the things he didn't understand, because this is something I've seen a lot when they don't understand a piece of vocabulary which seems a little strange because it's the 17th century word we don't really use anymore in French, or we're not even using in the late 19th century, for example. They remove it and they just simplify it, or remove the sentence entirely, or simply add something else. And it's the case for very few specific things that it's so obvious the translators were not historians and they were not making the research to know what was this thing they were supposed to translate. So in this translation, everything has been kept, which is really good.
The hands led him into a hall superbly gilt and furnished. Around it were represented the stories of all the most famous cats. Rodelardus hung by the heels in the Council of Rats, Puss in Boots, Marquis of Carabas, the Writing Cat, the cat that became a woman, witches in the shape of cats, their Sabbath, and all its ceremonies. In short, nothing was ever more curious than these paintings. The cloth was laid, and there were 2 covers, each accompanied by its golden cadenas. The buffet astonished him by the quantity of the cups upon it of rock crystal and 1,000 rare stones. The prince could not imagine for whom the 2 covers were placed, when he saw several cats take their places in a small orchestra, fitted up expressly for them.
In White Cat, as in many of Madame d'Aulnoy's fairy tales, food and refined dishes are displayed in different moments of the stories. And it is not a coincidence. What is called back then le bien manger, because the word gastronomy doesn't exist yet, becomes an art. And Louis XIV was known for his ferocious appetite and also for his menus with endless dishes. And the rare and delicate dishes, the sweets, the fruits, and the food that Madame d'Aulnoy chose to describe in her fairy tales reflect the taste at Versailles and in the aristocracy. For most people, these dishes really seem to belong to a fairy tale world, especially if we remember the big famine of 1694, who killed so many people in France.
The supper was served up. It was placed on the table by the hands of invisible bodies. First there were 2 soups, one of pigeons and the other of very fat mice. The sight of the latter prevented the prince from touching the former, believing that the same cook had concocted both.
So this is the progress I made on the scene of the supper. It doesn't look that much, but it's quite a lot actually. It's more than 1 week of work here that you see, even if there's still a lot of things in progress. I have 2 cats which are in progress. This one a little more advanced, the other one over here, and I will have probably 4 like that, which are going to hold things in the hands, the cages, and some musicians too, things like that. So those are in progress. This is the second body of White Cat, and this time she is sitting on her chair to have a dinner with the prince. And the chair, didn't want to do something too 18th century style. I wanted to follow a bit Madame d'Aulnoy, who mixed a lot of totally 17th century historical details of fashion, decors, entertainments, all of that, with some of her fantasy. And I wanted to do that also for the illustration. And here, this sort of chair with the big thing for the arms here are more like Louis XIV style, so mid-17th century. They are more square, more robust. I had created a first White Cat eating her supper as a scene on her own. I saw in my shop many years ago, like probably 5 years ago, and she had just a plate with her, and that was it. I didn't do everything around it. Here I'm doing the entire scene with the prince, of course, the other characters, the table, and all the decor. And here I have finished la bisque d'écrevisse, so it's the meal the prince is eating while White Cat is eating her mice soup, and it's not said, unfortunately, in the translation, and the translation we found for the audiobook, and it will be the same for the book. Maybe we are going to try to add this line, because it's a shame it's not appearing. They just say they are going to have supper. It's not said what they are eating, that the prince is going to eat this crawfish soup, which is a French meal even that you could eat today, which is a very refined meal, of course, because food was a way to distinguish yourself, of course, as an aristocrat and as someone who had some financial possibilities. So this plate is finished, and here I'm also recycling a few old things I have. I don't have tons of things I can recycle among all the things in progress I have made in the past, but for my historical video series, I had made a lot of little decors, little accessories and characters too, which I'm not going to sell. I'm not going to do anything with them because they were quickly done, they are not perfect, they were just made for the purpose of the story I was telling. But I knew at some point I would reuse them for something else, and here this one I've been reused for this one, and I'm going to redo it, do the decor for this one, which was more basic, simple, and had more flows. And there will be the soup for the white cat. For the head of the prince, I just thought just the same. I could reuse the head I had done for my series about Le Comte de Tilly, because I knew I would very probably not do a third episode. I'm not really sure if I would do one or not, but not in the upcoming month at least, because I really want to focus on this project as a side project, if you want, and I don't want to have too many because it's just otherwise just impossible. You can't make progress on anything. So I just thought this head is quite nice. For this character, the scale was working, but he's going to have a different wig, of course, because I want him to be more 17th century style, so he's going to have brown hair and long, more like, well, yes, Louis XIV style wig. So he also is going to have several bodies, but this is going to be at least one of his body for the dinner while he's meeting White Cat for the first time. So I mentioned about the translation of the fairy tale, the Western or the oldest one. They usually remove what they don't understand, the translators, because there are a lot of very historical things, and you need to be an historian and have done some research to know what they are what Madame Benoit is talking about. And she mentioned in the supper scene the cadenas that they have both next to the plate. Cadenas, so the translator translated like that. So if you don't know what it is, you could imagine she has a little something locked next to her plate, and what would be the purpose of that? And it's not that, it's actually a little a sort of plate, but it's not really a plate, a little thing where the prince and princesses, well, in the real world, could have their knives and forks and spoons and salt and pepper all in the same place. And maybe there were, I don't know exactly how it looked like, but maybe there was a security thing so that nobody but the prince or the princess could taste them or could try them. I'm not sure, but everything was all put together just for them. So they had their own salt and pepper and anything they wanted to have, and the knife, their spoon and their fork. So that was called a cadenas, and it was next to their plate. And this is something that the translator he kept for once. He didn't keep La Bisque d'écrevisse, who removed this dish name because he probably didn't know how to translate it, but he kept le cadenas, which, unless you know what it is, you would be a little lost to think that there was a cadenas just next to the plate and the fork. What would be the purpose of that? And I have improved the knives I also made for my Comte de Tilly series. I'm not going to reuse them, and they were very basic. I made them quickly, and here I am improving them for all the cutlery and all the things they need on the table, because I might also use them in their hands. I'm not really sure, so I prefer not having anything glued for now. And it's quite fun to play with them for the display, how I'm going to have them once I do the photo of the scene. And here we have the other body of White Cat, which is there. So this is her other dress. She's supposed to have, actually, in this scene, in the scene where she appears for the first time, we don't exactly know the color of her dress. She's supposed to have a black veil that I'm going to do because I want to follow a bit what she's describing, but it's more going to be on the back and we are not going to see it too much. But she has a more colorful dress because she already had a white dress. With this one is going to be for the poetry scene, I think. And for the cover too, of course, because for the cover I used it. Yeah, so it's quite fun to play with the wardrobe of White Cat and to have her with a dress with a different scene, with a different dress, different outfit each time, and playing with the colors. But I'm quite enjoying myself so far playing with all that. And this is the finished cover, background cover for both the audiobook and of course the book, for the cover of the story, which both draw drawings around and some sculpted fruits, which are appearing in the second part of the story. There is definitely a link with the forbidden apple, and here it's the forbidden fruits that the mother of White Cat shouldn't eat. So they needed to appear, I thought, on the cover, and this is a good example of all the things I want to have, mixing both drawings, well, there will be a bit of paintings, and also sculpting what I do normally with my paper techniques, fruits and elements and accessories, characters, decors in paper in 3D, but mixing the two, and I quite like that. So I had to finish it for the audiobook so that it would be ready, but it's also going to be the same cover for the real book, but in rectangle, and I want to have more characters behind White Cat, just to have maybe the prince and few cats behind White Cat. So this has only been completed these past weeks, so very recently, and I started it last May. It was completely stayed unfinished for 6 months, almost 9 months actually, and then I completed it just recently, and I was pleased with that. And the butterfly bed, for the butterfly bedroom in the first part, you had seen it in a video in January this year, but it was also started last year and not finished, so now it is completely finished everywhere, really nice. And for this scene I should add 1 or 2 bird things, so I have finished the main bed. I need to have 1 or 2 rugs or something on the floor. I had also painted a butterfly background. Yeah, this scene I mainly have 1 or 2 butterflies and birds to add. The rug and the foreground, where there will be things drawn a bit. But this is just what a small scene, and this one is, we could say, almost finished. Thank you very much for your encouragements and all your kind messages under my videos. For now, I will leave you here, and I hope to see you very soon.